Something is moving through our solar system that should not exist. The numbers refuse to add up, the physics refuses to cooperate, and 18 different mathematical impossibilities are staring us directly in the face. If this object followed the rules of nature, we would not be having this conversation right now, but it does not. And the implications of what we are seeing could rewrite everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmos. Welcome to the most comprehensive analysis of 3I/Atlas ever assembled. Before we dive into the evidence that is keeping scientists awake at night, hit that subscribe button because new data is arriving every single day, and what we discover next could change everything. Let us start with a simple question. Where did this thing come from? Space is infinite. An object could arrive from literally any direction in the three-dimensional vastness surrounding us. The odds of coming from any specific region are astronomically small. Yet 3I/Atlas did not come from just anywhere. When scientists traced its path backward through space, they found something that made their blood run cold. The origin point sits just 9 degrees away from one of the most famous coordinates in the history of astronomy, the WOW signal location. Back in 1977, a radio telescope detected the most powerful artificial-looking signal we have ever received from deep space. For 40 years, researchers have wondered if someone was trying to talk to us from that exact spot in Sagittarius. Now an object is arriving from that same neighborhood. 9 degrees might sound like a lot until you understand the scale we are working with. In the infinite sphere of possible arrival vectors, hitting within 9 degrees of the most significant potential alien signal in human history is not just unlikely, it is a statistical flag waving directly in our faces. But the origin is only the beginning. Watch what happens when this object enters our solar system. Every natural comet we have ever studied comes in at wild angles. They dive from above, they sweep from below, they approach from random inclinations because space has no preferred orientation. Our galaxy itself is tilted 60 degrees relative to the flat disk where Earth and the other planets orbit. Any object traveling through galactic space should reflect that tilt. It should come in steep and chaotic. 3I/Atlas did the opposite. It slid into our solar system on a trajectory that lies almost perfectly flat against the orbital plane of our planets. Just 5 degrees of deviation. Think about what that means. This object traveled for millions of years through interstellar space, crossing the tilted disk of the Milky Way, and somehow arrived aligned with the architecture of our local planetary neighborhood. The probability of this happening by random chance is so small that astronomers do not even have a word for it. It looks deliberate, it looks like something that knew where it was going. The precision gets worse. On January 22nd of this year, 3I/Atlas performed a maneuver that models say should never occur naturally. At 1300 hours Universal Time, it aligned itself with the Sun and Earth to within 7/10 of 1 degree. That is not an approximation, that is targeting accuracy. For an entire week, this object maintained an orientation that gave Earth a perfect view. The phase angle stayed below 2 degrees, meaning the Sun was behind it, illuminating it like a spotlight aimed directly at us. In the language of spacecraft design, this is called a high information geometry. You engineer this kind of pass when you want ground observers to see every detail. When you want to be photographed, when you want to be studied. A tumbling ice rock does not accidentally pause in the perfect position for a 7-day photo shoot with ideal lighting. That requires control. That requires intent. Now let us talk about the bend. Every object that approaches the Sun gets pulled by gravity. The path curves. This is basic orbital mechanics. For 3I/Atlas, that gravitational deflection measured exactly 16 degrees. By itself, this is just math. Speed and mass create a curve. But here is where it gets strange. Before it reached the Sun, Hubble captured images of an anti-tail structure jutting from the object. When scientists measured the opening angle of that feature, they found 8 degrees, exactly half of the deflection angle, 16 degrees of bend for an 8-degree structure, a perfect 2-to-1 ratio. In nature, we do not get clean integers. Rivers do not bend at exactly double their width. Mountains do not erode at perfect mathematical ratios. Random processes create messy numbers. But here we have a harmonic relationship between the physical shape of the object and the curve of its flight path. That is the signature of something engineered. That is what you see when mass distribution and trajectory are designed to work together. When the shape matches the mission, We are 3 anomalies deep, and the object is already screaming artificiality, but wait until you see the timing. This is not just about being in the right place. It is about being there at the exact right moment. 3I/Atlas threaded a needle through our solar system that would make NASA engineers jealous. It passed 29 million kilometers from Mars, safe distance, no gravitational chaos. It passed 54 million kilometers from Jupiter, again perfectly safe. But here is the disturbing part. The timing of these passes meant the object stayed hidden from Earth during its closest approach to the Sun. It hugged the blind spot. Our telescopes could not see it during the most critical phase of its journey. Then, exactly when it wanted to be seen, it emerged into that perfect alignment we talked about earlier. This is not random. This is a profile that military strategists would recognize. Approach under stealth, reveal when positioned, execute the mission when the geometry is ideal. The Jupiter encounter is where the mathematics becomes genuinely frightening. Scientists calculated the closest approach distance for March 16th. The prediction is 53.6 million kilometers. Jupiter has something called a Hill radius. This is the boundary where its gravity dominates over the Sun. That radius extends to 53.5 million kilometers. Do you see what just happened? 3I/Atlas is going to skim the absolute edge of Jupiter's gravitational control zone. The margin of error is less than 0.2%. It is riding the line. Imagine driving a car for thousands of miles with one tire exactly on the edge of the road the entire time. Never drifting into the lane, never falling off the shoulder, just perfectly balanced on the white line. That is what this object is doing with planetary gravity. A random rock does not do this. A random rock passes at 10 million or 100 million kilometers. To hit the theoretical boundary, this precisely suggests calculated navigation. It suggests someone or something that knows exactly how to extract maximum gravitational assist without losing control. Before we continue, I need you to picture something. Imagine a spinning top in the darkness of your room. Now imagine that top is somehow angled so that when you turn on a light across the room hours later, it is pointing directly at that light source. That is what 3I/Atlas did. Long before it entered the inner solar system, while it was still in the frozen void between stars, its rotation axis was already locked within 8 degrees of where the Sun would be. It was pre-aimed. Most comets tumble randomly. They are lumpy chunks of ice spinning chaotically because jets fire from random spots as the ice melts unevenly. This object maintained a stable attitude for years. It kept its face pointed at a star it had not reached yet. This is gyroscopic stabilization. This is attitude control. This is what spacecraft do when they need to keep sensors or solar panels oriented correctly. The thermal behavior makes even less sense. The jets on 3I/Atlas turn on when facing the Sun. Fine, that sounds normal for a comet, but watch what happens when it rotates into shadow. The jets shut off instantly, not gradually, not over hours as the surface cools down, instantly, like flipping a switch. Rock and ice hold heat. When a normal comet spins into darkness, it stays warm. The subsurface ice continues melting for hours. The jets keep firing until the thermal energy dissipates. 3I/Atlas does not do this. The moment the pole enters shadow, everything stops. For months, this requires insulation properties that do not exist in natural materials. The surface must be preventing heat from penetrating into the interior. Or, there is an active mechanism controlling when and where venting occurs. Either way, this object is treating solar radiation not as environmental heating, but as an on-off signal. It is binary, it is controlled, it is engineered. Let me show you the structures that convinced me this is not a comet. Typical comets create a fuzzy cloud called a coma. Sublimating ice expands in all directions, making a spherical haze. Hubble looked at 3I/Atlas and found something completely different. A jet, not a cloud, a jet, and not just any jet, a collimated beam of material with a length-to-width ratio of 10:1. It stretches hundreds of thousands of kilometers into space as a narrow cylinder. Here is the problem. This jet points toward the Sun, directly at it, against the solar wind. Every comet tail we have ever seen gets pushed backward by radiation pressure. The Sun blows the material away from itself. That is how tails form. They stream behind the comet, like hair in the wind, This jet is fighting upstream, it is punching through the solar wind and maintaining a straight line pointing at the sun. For this to happen, the particles must be heavy and dense, or the stream must be magnetically confined, or it must be moving fast enough to overcome radiation pressure. This does not look like a tail, this looks like a thruster exhaust. This looks like propulsion. Inside that jet, we found active guidance. The base does not wander across the surface, as you would expect from random melting. It stays locked within an 8-degree circle, centered on the pole facing the sun. As the object rotates, the jet adjusts, it corrects, it maintains aim on the solar vector. Let me ask you directly, does a ball of dirty ice contain a feedback control system to keep a vent pointed at a moving target? Or does that sound like a tracking mechanism to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because we are about to go deeper. This object has jets on both poles, north and south. Before perihelion, the northern hemisphere was active. After perihelion, when the seasons shifted on the object, the southern pole took over. Clean transfer. Binary switch. This is not melting ice. This is a dual thruster system designed to operate along the rotation axis, regardless of which end is sunward. It guarantees that propulsive force can always be directed toward the sun, no matter what orientation the object tumbles into. January 2026. Hubble captures the image that changes everything. The jet is not a single stream, it is three separate mini-jets arranged around a central axis. When scientists measured the spacing, they found perfect geometry, 120 degrees apart. Equilateral triangle, nature does not count to 3 with perfect symmetry. Triangles are engineering. Think about camera tripods. Think about landing legs on spacecraft. Think about the placement of maneuvering thrusters. These 3 jets extend 25,000 kilometers, and they wobble together. They oscillate plus or minus 20 degrees over a 7.2-hour period, synchronized, moving as one. This periodic motion suggests precession, or a scanning pattern, or a stabilization cycle, and there is a fourth structure, the main anti-tail jet extending 10 times farther than the mini-jets. The configuration is unmistakable, a primary engine surrounded by 3 attitude control thrusters. To see this level of geometric precision on a natural body is unprecedented. It implies internal structure, it implies designed venting ports, it implies coordination. We are watching a system that switches poles, maintains aim, and fires in a perfect triangular array. If the geometry does not convince you, wait until you see what it is made of. Every comet we have ever analyzed shows the same chemical signature. Iron dominates the metal content, cyanide compounds appear in standard ratios, carbon chains follow predictable patterns. Scientists can look at a spectrum and immediately recognize a comet. Then they pointed their instruments at 3I/Atlas, and the periodic table flipped upside down. The gas plume shows nickel, not trace amounts, dominant concentrations. Nickel exceeds iron. The ratio of nickel to cyanide is orders of magnitude higher than anything in our cometary database. This is not a slightly unusual rock. This is the spectroscopic signature of refined industrial alloy. We use high nickel superalloys in jet engines, in turbine blades, in aerospace heat shields. These materials resist extreme temperature and corrosion. They are engineered for performance. Finding a celestial object that is venting industrial-grade nickel vapor does not suggest geology, it suggests we are watching the ablation of a manufactured hull. We are seeing a heat shield burn. The dust particles tell the same story. The jet points at the sun without being deflected. For this to work, the particles must be heavy enough to resist radiation pressure. Physics constrains them to be larger than the submicron dust in normal comet tails. But these particles also reflect 99% of the sunlight hitting them. To be this reflective while being heavy requires a specific size range. The models pin it down, larger than a micron, but smaller than a millimeter. And here is the key. The size distribution is uniform, monodisperse. Natural collisions create a power law spread. Big chunks, medium rocks, small pebbles, fine dust, all mixed together. 3I/Atlas is shedding particles of consistent size. This is characteristic of engineered powders. This is what ablative materials produce when they burn at controlled rates. This is not the random grinding of geology. August 2025. The SPREX mission detected water ice fragments in the coma, Finally, scientists thought, proof of a comet. Then perihelion happened, and everything changed. The ice signature vanished, not faded, vanished, replaced by a massive surge of complex organic molecules, methanol, formaldehyde, methane, ethane, a 20-fold increase. The ice chunks disappeared, and a volatile hydrocarbon soup appeared in their place. The only explanation that fits the data is a protective layer burning away to expose an interior reservoir. Those organic compounds are fragile, cosmic radiation destroys them over millions of years. For them to survive the journey from another star system, they would need shielding. Calculations show at least 10 meters of rock or metal overburden. What we observed looks like insulation being stripped away or an internal tank being opened. We are seeing a shielded vessel venting its contents. We are seeing stored volatiles. We are seeing fuel or coolant. Now we arrive at the final physical impossibilities. 3 more anomalies that break the rules entirely. First, the mass and velocity combination. We have seen interstellar visitors before. Oumuamua was small and fast. Borisov was large and slow. 3I/Atlas breaks the pattern. Tracking data indicates a massive nucleus, far heavier than both previous objects, yet it is moving faster than either of them. In orbital mechanics, kinetic energy is expensive. To be both heavy and fast requires enormous input energy at the point of origin. A random rock ejected from a distant solar system does not get this much velocity unless something catastrophic happened. It is like finding a freight train moving at the speed of a bullet. Nature gives us light things moving fast or heavy things moving slow. This object is both. That takes energy, that takes force, that takes an engine, or an explosion of unimaginable scale. Second, the light polarization. When light bounces off a surface, the angle and spin of the photons tell us about texture. Rocks have one signature, dust has another, ice has its own pattern. Scientists measured the polarization of light reflecting from 3I/Atlas and found something never before seen on any comet. Deep negative polarization. This optical behavior suggests a complex surface structure, maybe a porous lattice, maybe a regular grid. Negative polarization often comes from materials that trap and scatter light at specific angles. It adds weight to the hypothesis that the surface is not natural regolith. It might be an artificial metamaterial. It might be an engineered texture that does not exist in our geological catalog. Third, the brightness and color surge. As 3I/Atlas approached the Sun, it did not just get brighter according to the inverse square law. Like every other object in space, it surged. It brightened faster than any comet ever recorded. Defying passive reflection models, it was adding luminosity or dramatically increasing reflective surface area. At the same time, the color changed. Most comets are reddish-brown from dust and organics. This object turned blue, bluer than the Sun itself. A blue color shift in a reflective object implies either pristine ice or active emission, but we know this thing is rich in nickel and organics. For it to appear blue suggests high-energy processes, ion fluorescence, extreme heat, something beyond simple sunlight reflection off cold ice. 18 anomalies, 18 statistical impossibilities. An object from the direction of our most famous potential alien signal. Arriving on a flight path aligned with our planetary plane, locking onto Earth with targeting precision, bending around the Sun in harmonic ratios, timing its approach to thread gravitational needles, pre-aiming its spin axis, managing thermal control with binary switches, firing collimated jets that track the Sun, operating dual-pole thrusters, displaying a perfect triangular thruster array with synchronized wobble, spewing industrial nickel alloys, shedding uniform engineered particles, protecting organic compounds behind shielding, combining massive weight with extreme velocity, showing unprecedented optical signatures, and surging with unnatural blue light. In science, we search for the simplest explanation. Occam's razor tells us to prefer natural causes. Usually, a rock is just a rock. But when that rock navigates like a pilot, when it fires like an engine, when it builds itself from aerospace alloys, when it violates 18 separate laws of probability, the simplest explanation is no longer natural. The simplest explanation becomes design, intelligence, purpose. We are looking at a probe. Whether it is still functioning or long dead, Whether it came here intentionally or drifted off course from some ancient mission, the data points to technology. The math points to engineering. The evidence points to something built. The scientific community has been strangely quiet about these 18 points. The data is public, the observations are confirmed, yet the implications remain unspoken in mainstream channels. Perhaps because accepting this conclusion means accepting that we are not alone, perhaps because the questions it raises are more terrifying than the answers. If this is a probe, who sent it? When was it launched? Is it watching us? Is it reporting back? Or did it die in the void millions of years ago, a ghost ship drifting through our system as a monument to a civilization that may no longer exist? We do not have those answers yet, but we have the data, and the data is screaming at us to pay attention. If this investigation opened your eyes to what is actually moving through our solar system right now, smash that like button. Share this analysis with anyone who still thinks we have seen everything the universe has to offer. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this situation is developing in real time. New observations are coming in, new measurements are being taken, and whatever 3i/Atlas truly is, its story is far from over. The universe has been trying to get our attention for a very long time. Maybe it is finally time we started listening. Thank you for watching.